Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy. Always great to see Joe Stanley and Dr. Nick Carr. And we're missing the fourth piece of the puzzle in Jacqui Felgate, who is over sunning herself somewhere beautiful. Got to say, I'm more than a little jealous.
Absolutely. Lucky Jack, because here in the Southern Hemisphere, winter has arrived with a vengeance, but that's okay. I do say, though, in my house, the heating is on pretty much 24/7. We are churning through the bills.
It is an expensive commodity, Joe, and it's just not affordable for a lot of people. And now there's been a link found between poorer mental health and colder houses. Research out of Melbourne Uni has shown that things like anxiety, depression are 50% more common in people who just can't afford to heat their homes.
And, Nick, it's disadvantaged people and renters are often the ones that are affected the worst by the cold conditions. No wonder we're pushing for minimum standards for heating, repairs and insulation in rental properties.
Yeah, I support that enormously. Well, today we are taking on the winter chill by giving our bodies a full tune and service.
We also take a look at bird flu and its effect on our food.
And I take a fascinating look, even though I say it myself, at medicine through the ages, including a disease called gout, which actually isn't as old-fashioned as you might think.
Now, my favourite winter therapy is a beautiful hot shower. And I must say, I sometimes have up to 3 in a day because it's the only thing that will warm me to my core.
Well, I don't mind a hot bath myself, Joe. I mean, I am English.
Once a week.
And, of course, hydrotherapy has been a tried and tested treatment through the centuries. And here's the thing. I mean, that buoyancy in water is so comforting, takes the pressure off the joints. So it's really good for things like rehabilitation, people with disabilities.
And on that note, Nick, there is an immersion therapy that's been developed in South Australia that's now going national, that's tapping into the unique healing power of water. Check it out.
After being diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer in 2020, Melbourne's Tim Buckley struggled to hold on to his sense of self.
It shrunk me because I had chemo and radiation, and it shrunk my body. It changed my face. My legs were like this. You know, they were skinny. I just deteriorated. I sat in this bed for 8 months. I never got out of this bed in 8 months. I went really quiet. I didn't talk a lot. Didn't talk a lot to anyone. I just went into my shell. That's a big one.
As he approached 3 full years of social isolation, last December, Tim was encouraged by a support worker to try a new physical therapy program being offered at his local pool.
Next thing you know, I was booked in for a session at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, and it just happened so quick. I hadn't been in the pool for years, and I was totally unable to walk. I couldn't walk anywhere. So I was thinking in my mind, how am I going to get into the pool? How are they going to do that? You know, I'm going to fall in there, am I going to drown?
But this isn't your typical water-based exercise. It's called immersion therapy, and it's an experience unlike any other.
We use scuba equipment to be able to exploit the environment underwater, so people can get under there, stay under there, and be supported by the water and exercise.
Tim is one of the first Victorians to dive into this unique treatment, but it's been making waves in South Australia since 2015, when Peter Wilson first conceived the idea while recovering from a near-fatal accident.
I was at work, and as part of closing up, duties was taking a motorbike around the block and lost control of that motorbike. As a result of that accident, I was run over by a car while I was on the road, and it took about 12 months to learn how to walk again. I know what it feels like when your body doesn't move like you'd like it to, and when your head perhaps doesn't be as quiet as it should, and exercising perhaps in a gym isn't for you. Good, have fun, Nadia. Physical activity had to have some sort of hook to it for me, and that's why I created immersion therapy.
These aquatic activities, which consist of everything from submerged strength training to underwater started out as a light-hearted social way for people recovering from injuries to keep active. But before long, some deeper benefits began to emerge.
I had a really serious injury over 10 years ago now with my back. I tried so many different things, nothing worked. Every time I tried something, I seemed to re-aggravate my back or do some form of pain increasing, whereas I don't get that with this.
I had a brain injury and I had problems with my right side, and it's amazing what the water has done for me. If you're falling, you can catch yourself so you don't fall, and on land, if you fall, that's it.
When you're ready, you can slide yourself out.
In just a few short years, a splash of fun in the pool has rippled out into an award-winning allied health service, registered under the NDIS and guided by specially trained exercise physiologists. University of South Australia Associate Professor Kay Davison has been closely following this program's progression, working on 2 studies to date observing the reported benefits.
People do tend to get what their goal is. If their objective is to get stronger in their legs, then the service can be focused around that, particularly where people have restricted mobility on land for various reasons. If people use a wheelchair, if people have if their function is impaired where they're not able to really move freely, then the underwater environment takes the effects of gravity off, allows them to move, and so they can put their body into positions that it just can't achieve, and it can be loaded in different ways, so their muscles can get activated in ways that's not possible on land. Some of that can be achieved with partial immersion, so what traditional hydrotherapy, sort of lower body or even up to neck, but the freedom of movement, the actual moving through space, is still different.
I have what's called vertigo, and I can't walk in a straight line. I bump into things even with my walking frame. I walk into walls, I walk into poles, I walk into everything, and under the water, it doesn't matter, I just walk.
Underneath the water, my body changes and more unwanted movements go away. Afterwards, I feel good and my body is relaxed. I feel hungry and tired. Then I have a shower and lunch. It is a good way to start the week.
So what we've got until now is we've got this good self-reported and observational information that suggests that it is really beneficial. What we don't have is a randomised controlled trial to say for certain that the reason people are changing is 100% because of the immersion therapy. So we're now embarking on a randomised controlled trial. So that'll give us a really good comparator, direct comparator, to see, okay, if you have this on top of your normal treatment, do we see a change?
It might have taken me 3 lessons to walk properly with the tank in the deep end underwater, I'd say. And that was an amazing sensation. It was made me so happy that I could do something that I couldn't do before. My physio's telling me she thinks I'm almost ready to start to walk without my frame. And I'm walking around the house, I'm going to the toilet. It's given me confidence to get out and about. You know, I've bought myself a brand new scooter. I go up the shops, you know, and I get around. I'm so lucky that I found it. It's given me everything.
Right now, Joe, a lot of Australians are participating in Dry July, giving up alcohol for the month. And some good news, you're past the halfway mark and raising some really important funds for those affected by cancer, which is a good thing.
Well, the messaging around the effects of alcohol are ongoing. And right now, Das, young women are particularly being urged to cut back on the booze, and that's especially when it comes to binge drinking.
Yeah, the stats say, Joe, that 300,000 Australian women are regular binge drinkers at high-risk levels, meaning they drink more than 11 standard drinks in a sitting. That's giving it a pretty good nudge.
That really is, absolutely. And when you think about it also, women are big consumers of pre-mixed drinks, and a lot of these drinks market themselves with low carb and low sugar on the labels. So it's no wonder that people mistakenly believe that they're healthy.
Yeah, that's why there's a big push on to get proper information on those labels and up to date. It's a really important thing.
Well, can you believe back in the day people thought that alcohol was healthy? It was used to treat everything from colds to fever, even sedating women during labour.
Seriously?
Yeah, amazing. So medicine certainly has come a long way. Here's Dr. Nick.
Oh, modern medicine is marvellous, isn't it? With vaccines, we've eradicated diseases like smallpox. Antibiotics mean we no longer die from an infected flesh wound. And if it all gets too much for your poor organs, we can whip out a kidney or a heart and pop in a new one. Not like the old days, eh? Back then, things like bloodletting were all the rage. For centuries, it was believed that letting out the bad blood could cure anything from meningitis to madness. Pale and anemic? Let's open up a vein to fix you. Wrong. Always useless, frequently dangerous, even fatal. But it was only a couple of hundred years ago that we stopped doing it. Then, early last century, there was a fad for using a special water as a health tonic and to cure certain ailments such as impotence. Called Radiothor, it was, as its name suggests, radioactive. Also useless and certainly dangerous. Psychiatry has never been an exact science, but back in the 1930s, it was bordering on butchery. Lobotomy became a popular procedure. Well, popular amongst the psychiatrists, not so much the poor patients. In the absence of any other effective treatment, it was thought that severing the nerve pathways at the front of the brain might help diseases like schizophrenia. Frequently useless, often disastrous. But despite this, over 50,000 people in the US and the UK were lobotomized before the procedure was eventually abandoned. Wouldn't happen these days, would it? Well, maybe not to your brain, but what about your knee? For many years, orthopaedic surgeons did arthroscopic surgery for osteoarthritis of the knee, until some bright spark came along and did a beautiful piece of research that showed that the surgery was no better than placebo. All those unnecessary operations, when a bit of time, physiotherapy and support would have worked just as well. Oh yes, modern medicine really is marvellous, except for the bits that turn out not to be. Unfortunately, neither you nor I know which those next bits might be.
Still to come, why has the government backflipped on tough new vaping laws? Plus bird flu, can we get it? Are eggs safe to eat? Find out after this.
Well, Nick, we're all fans of equality here on the House of Wellness and genuinely believe that everyone should be equal, but that's not necessarily the case when it comes to our health. There are some significant differences between the genders.
Yeah, it won't surprise you to know, Das, that we men are much more likely to end up in hospital due to injuries. That's because, of course, young men are much more likely to be risk takers. I mean, you've got 3 sons.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that close hand, Nick. No surprises there for me. And the average age is 19 to 24, where you're most likely to end up in the emergency department, which is sort of the average age of young tradies.
Yeah, and a lot of that's due to falls, a lot of it from roofs. And then, of course, at the weekend, you've got ladders and old people falling off. But there's another disease which we men are more likely to suffer from, and that's gout, which is a form of arthritis that can occur particularly at night.
So gout is a type of inflammatory arthritis that is a crystal type of arthritis where crystals, specific crystals, uric acid crystal, deposits into joints, and then the immune system attacks those joints because the crystal is thought of as foreign, and that causes lots of inflammation and pain. It's a little bit like if you think about a beaker of water and you keep adding salt, it initially dissolves, but then too much is in the water and it just starts coming out of solution. That's what happens with uric acid in the body. Our kidneys are supposed to weed that out, but if they're not doing it properly, or there's genetic reasons why, or people are taking in too much purines in their diet, it builds up. Foods that are known to be high in purines are red meats in particular, but shellfish, seafood, and also beer. So gout was known as the disease of kings because King Henry VIII had gout, was known for it. In fact, it became very fashionable because of him having gout, that everyone else wanted gout. It was really only the wealthy that indulged in beer and spirits and red meat and rich food. So it is associated with that. It has a lot of myths abounding around that, but definitely alcohol does increase the risk of gout. Gout is common. It's about 1% of the population at least. Men are more likely than women. It's a ratio of around about 3 to 1. Men tend to get it over the age of 40, women after menopause or around menopause. But there's also genetics involved in this, and there's some nationalities that are more likely to get it than others, and that includes the Maoris, the South Pacific Islanders, the Han Chinese, for instance. Gout is easy to diagnose if it involves a big joint, and you can take the fluid off and look at under a microscope and you can see the needle-like uric acid crystals. So typically it's the big toe is the first episode, but then recurrent attacks occur, and it can be the big toe again, it can swap feet, but then it tends to go like the ankle, the knee, sometimes the elbow, and then hands, so it spreads. But it doesn't just spread to joints. The uric acid is deposited in soft tissues as well. So it can go to other parts of the body, such as the kidney. Gout can be excruciating. When it involves the big toe, people describe that they can't even put the sheet over it. It's that painful. So it is a very debilitating type of inflammatory arthritis.
Well, from gout to vaping, there's a segue for you. The laws were tightened from July 1 that meant that vapes could only be purchased with a prescription from a pharmacy in a move to try to control the vaping explosion.
And just as those new rules came in, the federal government did a backflip. So from October, instead of needing a script, you'll be able to buy your vapes behind the counter from the pharmacy, but only after you've had a chat with the pharmacist about the harms of vaping.
Well, the thinking behind the backflip was the worry that former smokers and young people would go back to smoking if vapes were harder to get.
Yeah, and such an important point, Joe, because the Cancer Council of Australia have just revealed that 1,200 young Australians between the ages of 12 and 19 are being introduced to vapes every single week. And, you know, the last thing we want is then to move to cigarettes. So, you know, maybe that backflip is the right thing.
Well, another product that has become really hard to get, and this one is a really healthy one, are eggs.
Yeah, it's all due to an outbreak of avian or bird flu, which has got some people asking about the chicken and the egg. Not just which came first, but are they still safe to eat?
Bird flu is one of the wide spectrum of influenza viruses that infect all mammals, including humans. The ones that infect birds, we call them bird flu. There's also swine flu. And how those viruses get from wild populations of birds into farmed animals is because these wild birds migrate. And as they're flying over particular areas, if they are carrying those bird flus, which they do naturally, they can shed the virus in secretions, in their faeces, and that can then contaminate domestic birds, farm birds, etc. Humans can contract bird flu, but it has to be directly from an infected bird, a live infected bird. Now, some species of bird flu do infect humans, rarely, and can cause serious disease. The ones that are implicated in the outbreaks in the 3 states in Australia are the types that don't normally cross over into humans and only do if you have very, very close contact with live infected birds. We do not catch bird flu from our food. Flu is, in humans, a respiratory virus, so we have to breathe it in. And it can come in through aerosols and other sources, but food has never been implicated as a source of flu in humans. Now, if people have any doubt about that or any concerns, the normal practices of cooking eggs and poultry meat will kill the virus. There's nothing to be concerned about with flu transmission through our food supply. There's not been any recorded incidents of bird flu transmission through our food. So eggs, poultry meat, etc. are safe. However, my recommendation is always to cook those foods thoroughly and properly because that minimises any risk of any infection, viral, bacterial or otherwise. This is the concern with bird flu, that if something happens in the evolution of the virus and we get a hybrid between human virus and bird virus, that new thing could be the next pandemic-causing virus. So we always recommend people to get their annual flu vaccinations for their own health and well-being, but also to prevent any of these undesirable evolutionary things that happen with wild viruses.
Still to come, how pole vaulting superstar Nina Kennedy bounced back from injury to be flying higher than ever. That's next on the House of Wellness. Joe, I could speak every day about how inspiring Neil Danaher and the Danaher family have been in the fight for a cure to motor neurone disease. It was the 10th anniversary of the big freeze at the G. I was very privileged to be involved in the very first one, and the work the Danaher family are doing is truly remarkable.
Absolutely incredible. They've just announced that this year's fundraising effort has clicked over to $20 million. That is a lot of blue beanie stars. And, of course, all the other fundraising efforts that they do, amazing.
$110 million over the 10 years. Neil was literally given less than 12 months to live. 10 years on, he is still going nowhere, Neil, and his campaign to try and find a cure has allowed so many research projects to be undertaken. And as I said, the inspiration for those that have suffered in silence in the past with motor neurone disease, to give a voice to those people, is one of the great stories of our time.
Absolutely. I mean, Neil Danaher is incredible. But, you know, we're so lucky in Australia to have such a stellar lineup of amazing athletes to inspire us, including our Olympic athletes who in just 1 week will be stepping out in the Paris Olympics opening ceremony.
And one of those is an incredible story. Nina Kennedy is a pole vaulting legend. She's a Commonwealth Games gold medalist, the current world champion, and her road to Paris is one we're following with great interest. I can't wait for it to start. And she caught up with our own Abby Holmes. We've got great hopes for Nina Kennedy.
You know, this year is a huge year, obviously, the Olympics, so everything is centred around that, essentially. Physically, I am peaking for that day, the Olympic final. It's like people talk about this hyper-focus around the Olympics. You speak to ex-Olympians, you know, gold medalists, and they say they had this hyper-focus and nothing else mattered, and I never really understood it until this year. And I'm like, okay, I
all you can think of now.
I get what you mean now. And honestly, since those World Championships last year, I've thought about the Olympics every single day. And I'm kind of using that pressure and I'm trying to turn it into this privileged mindset. Like, I feel so lucky to be doing what I'm doing. And yeah, you know, I'm going for a medal at the Olympics. Like, how cool is that?
So
like,
cool.
So freaking cool. So I'm just rolling with that energy.
So here we go, opening attempt for Nina Kennedy. 4 metres 45 is the height of the bar.
It's been a pretty cool journey to watch. Take us back. When did you first get involved with junior athletics and what was it that you loved about it initially?
Yeah, so I started Little Athletics when I was under 12. And I just loved it. I don't know, I just have such a passion for the sport. You know, it kind of started at school days when you'd have an athletics day every year. I
loved that.
And I just waited for that day because I just had so much fun. Sports day, right? Yeah. So I just loved that. And I think from there, you know, I was winning races, so Mum could kind of see that I wanted to do it. And I kind of begged her to take me to the local club. Yeah. So I joined, and I think something really special about doing athletics at that age is you have to do every event.
Yeah.
You have to do the shot put, you have to do the 1500, you have to do the sprints and the hurdles and the long jump, you have to do everything. And I think just that variety, it just really challenged me, and I kind of fell in love with the sport. And then, yeah, I started pole vault a few years after that.
What was it about pole vault? Because it won your heart, ultimately.
Yeah, no, it was. So the National Centre for Pole Vault is in Perth. And Steve Hooker had just won the 2008 Olympics. So there was a lot of buzz around the sport, there was a lot of buzz around him, and I think it was the year after I got sent a letter in the mail saying, you know, do you want to come try pole vault?
Oh, it was a good jump, wasn't it?
It was a great jump day, great speed.
Well, it was a pretty epic rise through the World Junior ranks as well. So how did you, as a young girl coming through, kind of navigate those experiences?
Yeah, you know, I became quite good quite early, and, you know, that kind of threw me into, you're representing Australia at the World Youth Championships, and you're, you know, 15. So, you know, it was a few of those experiences. I went to 2 World Juniors, which is an under-20 world event, and then all of a sudden I'm representing Australia on a senior level when I was 18. So it just happened all very quickly.
Did it make you grow up very quickly as well? I mean, you've had incredible support throughout your journey, there's no doubt about that. But as you said, travelling the world from such a young age, no doubt you had to find a certain level of independence at the same time.
You know, I've never really thought about it, but I think in hindsight, you're totally right. You know, all my friends were finishing year 12, they were going to uni, they were going out and like exploring themselves and traveling, and I guess I felt like I could never really do those things, and I never really had like a normal progression into like adulthood, I guess. And it was like, yeah, I was traveling the world and I was representing Australia, and it was quite a different journey. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't change anything. It's definitely made me the person I am today.
What are your priorities when it comes to your preparation? I can assume that your diet is one that you really hone in on.
Yeah, you're right. I think diet is just like one piece of the puzzle. You know, there are so many different elements to get me like healthy on match day, essentially. So, you know, recovery, sleep, diet, mental state, physical state, like there are so many pieces, and I think I've just really made it a lifestyle choice. So I'm going to bed early, I'm eating really healthy, essentially I'm really bloody boring, is how I like to
You're going to have to be though as an athlete or something.
But, you know, I'm waking up refreshed, you know, I feel fueled, and I'm going to training and I'm going back and recovering again. I'm consolidating my gains, essentially.
Gold medalist and Commonwealth Games champion, Australia, Nina Kennedy.
In honesty, I think pole vault is one of those events where you need to be an all-rounder. Yeah. You need to be fast, you need to be strong, you need to be mentally good, you need to be flexible, you need to have aerial awareness. So, you know, I'm doing a lot of gymnastics, I'm doing yoga, but I'm also hitting the gym and I'm also hitting the track. So I quite like the event in that way. I think people forget that it's also very technical.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of what we're doing is data analysis and watching jumps and looking at what could have changed, and, you know, the conditions play a big part in that as well. But yeah, I feel like you just have to be an all-rounder. Athletics is really interesting because, you know, we're not jumping every single week like, you know, footballers and netballers. It's like we have an Olympics every 4 years. We have a World Championship every 2 years. So it's like to do your best jump ever on the day that you've set out to do it, to win that competition. I think it's just an amazing amount of pressure that we've had to deal with. And I don't know, to be able to do that, it's just like, it makes you feel really good. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, damn, I did that. Like, that's sick.
You know, Das, I love coming to the House of Wellness because most of the time I work from home. In fact, 37% of Australians work from home regularly, and there's been a lot of talk about the pros and cons of that, but I love it. One thing, though, is that I'm very chaotic with my workspace, and it tends to take over the whole house, from my desk to the kitchen table to the lounge. That's not ideal.
Well, Joe, there's one particular social media clip that's gone viral of an office makeover. You've got the old drab grey cubicle and your typical open plan office that's transformed into this cosy, warm, inviting space. Let's be honest, we all want to work in a space that inspires us, don't we?
Absolutely. How about the fake fire on the desk? I love that detail. How wonderful. Well, yes, you're right, Das. Having an inspiring and organised workspace is key to reaching your goals, and so is putting your best face forward, according to wellness entrepreneur Laura Henshaw.
Laura, you're one busy girl, and on top of everything, you now have this amazing podcast, Do I Want Kids? How did this come about?
So I'm 31 years old and I am starting to think about if I want to have kids or not. And when I was thinking about and talking to people about it, I couldn't find the answers to the questions that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And I felt like as well, when I was open about it, people were like, what do you mean you don't know? We live in a pronatal society where people assume that we will want to have children, but it is a choice and it's a decision that we should feel empowered
100%.
to make. And so when I opened up about it on my social media, I had so many people come back to me and say, I feel exactly the same way and I just feel like I'm alone. And so I decided to create the mini-series on the Kick Pod. And I think the biggest thing that I learned, and I've been able to apply this to every decision in my life now, is you need to go deep in what you want. We so often feel like we have to make decisions because of what everyone else expects of us. And so you have to go deep and, you know, ask yourself, like, what do I really want?
Yeah. Laura, you've achieved so much with health and business. Being the CEO and co-founder of Kick, tell me, what's your relationship these days with beauty?
So I think in my 20s, I used to look at makeup and things as a way to kind of hide who I was, and I didn't feel like I was enough without it.
Yeah.
But now I've kind of worked through that and feel enough kind of as I am without it. But it doesn't mean that I don't love, you know, doing my hair or putting makeup on. And now I look at it as a bit of a ritual for myself, as a form of self-care.
I've always admired your beautiful, flawless, fresh, healthy glow makeup that you do on yourself. Is there anything you haven't nailed yet that we could learn today? Some tips, tricks?
Yes, absolutely. I would love your help with contouring. I feel like I try and I just, something's not it when I do it.
Contouring is always the one people ask for. Let's give it a shot. So a good way to carve out and contour your face is to kind of get almost like a stick, a contour stick like this, choosing a colour that is a fair few shades darker than your natural skin tone, and then buffing it like this from the product directly onto the brush and just really dusting it over the areas you want in an upwards motion. But the places that we really want to add a contour or a bit of a bronze is to almost like a 3. So it's like on the halo of the head, under the cheekbones, and then across the jawline like that. So that's a good way to remember. Your name is often connected to your best friend, business partner, Steph Claire Smith. How much is your hair, makeup, skincare routine similar or different?
We've been friends for over 10 years now. We actually had very different sense of style and routines and things like that. And it has actually been interesting looking back at how much we've kind of morphed. We definitely still have our own unique styles, but we do definitely share a lot of beauty tips.
A lot of what you do is always linked back to your Kick community, and we can't forget about them. What do you want them to know when it comes to business, beauty, or just life?
It is so important for them to know that they are enough as they are. You know, a lot of what we do with Kick is kind of going against toxic diet culture. And we live in a world that tells us, especially as women, that we are not enough as we are. And a lot of businesses profit off that. There are so many things around us that make us feel really small, and it is so important to come back into yourself and always remind yourself that, you know, I am enough as I am right now in this moment.
Honey is as versatile as it is delicious, but not all honey is created equal. New Zealand Manuka honey is unique, thanks to its naturally occurring compound, methylglyoxal, or MGO. The higher the MGO rating, the more pure the Manuka honey, which translates to more wellness and healing benefits for us. With its antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, New Zealand Manuka honey can be applied to wounds for faster healing, act as a natural sweetener in tea or coffee, even appear in our beauty routines for glowing skin. Rich in antioxidants and prebiotics, it can also help support a functioning digestive system and improve gut health. But this time of year, it acts as a potent superfood, helping to balance and strengthen our immune system, providing a natural boost of energy that's often lacking when we're sick.
The focus of Manuka Health has always been, and always will be, quality over quantity.
Their honey-making process spans 2 years, unlike other producers that choose to speed up the process by applying heat, thereby stripping Manuka honey of its natural health benefits. Manuka Health Manuka honey originates from New Zealand, the only honey extensively researched and recognised by experts. For prevention and protection against the common cold, simply include a spoonful of Manuka honey into your day, whether in a smoothie, on your favourite breakfast, or straight from the spoon. If a cough or sore throat strikes, the Manuka Health Drops are the convenient solution for on the go. They're 100% natural, combining the goodness of MGO 400 plus honey with the fresh natural taste of lemon and ginger, plus an extra boost of vitamin C. We all know and love honey for its sweet, delicious taste, but more than ever, we care about where our foods come from. Each jar of Manuka Health's Manuka honey has a unique QR code, which can be traced back to its beekeeper, so you can trust yours truly is liquid gold.
Nick, I'm a celiac, which means I avoid foods that contain gluten. Going back 20 years ago when I first found out, there's probably only 1 or 2 options in the supermarket that made sense. Now there's a whole variety of options. But let me ask you this question. If there was one food that you were going to eat for nutrition, what would you go for?
I might surprise you, Darcy, but I'm going for the soybean because it's one of the few plants that contains all of the essential amino acids. So I call tofu the rare roast beef of the plant kingdom.
There's a good rap for tofu. Sweet potato is a big favourite of Australians. It turns out 63% of Australian households eat sweet potato. We average about 3 kilos a year. And I've got to say, I am a big lover of the sweet potato, Nick.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one, Das, and most people love the gold sweet potato, but actually the purple sweet potato has just been voted, get this, the International Vegetable of the Year 2024.
So there is such a vegetable of the year.
There is such a thing, and that's because it's so high in vitamins and antioxidants.
So purple gets the tick, and I'm assuming all other vegetables are in that bracket as well.
Yeah, but purple is particularly good, things like beetroot as well as this purple sweet potato. Because they're just packed full of goodness.
And we're always trying to work out ways to get more veggies into our diet and on our plate. Well, here's Zoe with a very quick and simple mushroom risotto.
There's something magical about Italian cuisine, with its rich flavours and comforting textures, made simply but with heart. And today I'm putting all that love into my barley mushroom risotto. By soaking pearl barley in water and pop it aside for about an hour. Use a deep saucepan to saute onion, leek and garlic. This dry heat cooking technique adds another layer of flavour by browning the ingredients quickly, so keep everything moving. Carrots add a subtle sweetness, offset by the mild bitterness of celery. A texture contrast with the soft, creamy barley. Mushrooms are primed to absorb all the flavours and build depth, but I love them for the nutrient hit as one of the few food sources of vitamin D. 3 to 5 minutes is all you need to create some divine aromas. Then stir through the barley. Add the stock gradually. I'm looking for a loose texture. No one wants a sticky risotto. Simmer until the barley is tender and serve with a protein, salad or solo.
Risotto needs a little bit more attention than the average dish, but when you get that perfect consistency and blend of flavours, patience certainly does pay off.
Get Nourished is brought to you by Vitamin D Lipo Sachets. Liposomal vitamin D provides 4 times higher absorption compared to vitamin D3 capsules, which are vitamins to work with Lipo Sachets, Australia's #1 liposomal vitamin brand.
The
skin is the largest organ of the body and it serves a number of really important functions, which includes keeping the moisture in and the irritants out. But when the skin barrier is compromised, this can be associated with dry and sensitive skin. Thankfully, looking after dry and sensitive skin does not have to be difficult. Oat Active Plus is a 100% natural ingredient made from finely milled oats. The ingredient binds to the skin to help lock in moisture. Oat Active Plus is rich in antioxidants, vitamins and lipids which help replenish the natural barrier of the skin. Oat Active Plus has 6 key benefits. This includes improving hydration, soothing the skin which is prone to itch and irritation, balancing the natural pH of the skin, preventing loss of moisture from the skin, protecting the skin barrier and helping the skin barrier to repair and replenish itself. Dermaveen is a well-trusted brand with a heritage of providing support for those with dry and sensitive skin looking for products free of any common irritants. It's a 2-step skincare plan which has been clinically proven to provide instant hydration lasting up to 48 hours. The Daily Nourish soap-free wash cleanses the skin without leaving it dry. This is followed by the Daily Nourish moisturising lotion, which can be applied liberally day and night to provide hydration to the skin without leaving it sticky or greasy. Both products contain the ingredient Oat Active Plus. Made in Australia, the products are dermatologically tested for sensitive skin, removing the worry of irritation. We only get one skin in life, and looking after it does not have to be difficult or involve a long list of expensive ingredients. Gentle and effective is the way to go.
You know, I don't need any encouragement to travel pretty much anywhere. I just recently had the most beautiful family holiday in Vietnam. Oh my gosh, the people, the culture, the food, the architecture, one of my favourite places on earth.
Yeah, but what about Tasmania, Joe?
Oh,
Yeah, Bruny Island, summer or winter. But for me, I needed a bit of warmth this winter, so I went to Magnetic Island off the coast in Queensland. Just gorgeous. Just don't tell anyone else about it, though.
Surabaya, Bali. I know you've been there, Nick.
Oh,
Wish I was there right now. I always feel like I feel good for 6 months after a week up there. But I've been thinking about Tassie a lot lately as well, Nick. Beautiful. I haven't spent enough time down there. And the Tassie Tourism Department have opened up this thing they're calling an odd jobs holiday, where you change the daily grind of your life in Melbourne for a bit of a breakdown in Tassie.
They've got some pretty odd jobs indeed, Tas. So, supernatural investigator, stargazer, and even wombat walker amongst the 10 jobs that you can go for.
Well, I absolutely love this because I love Tassie. Who needs an excuse to get down there? But successful applicants get their travel expenses, their accommodation and their food covered instead of getting paid. But what a great job. How much fun.
And get this, the supernatural investigator gets to track down a legendary ghost in an historic asylum. I would love that job.
I could picture Nick wandering down chasing ghosts in Tassie for sure. The oyster sorter sounds more like my cup of tea down there, Joe. Well, that's what we've got time for today on the House of Wellness. Thanks to Dr. Nick Carr and to Joe Stanley.
Check out House of Wellness Radio every Sunday with Luke Hines and Gerald Quigley.
And a big thanks to our friends at Chemist Warehouse. It's bye for now.